Ok, ahora sí estamos en vivo, real live.
We're live, okay.
Ajá. Ok, gente, volví. Esta vez vamos a hacer algo diferente porque estas versiones van a ser en Spanglish. Porque Jamie, no habla español, pero un poquito de español.
No
Entonces,
sabo.
no sabo. Voy a tratar de hacer esto en inglés-español para que todos puedan entenderlo. Y las preguntas, la serie de preguntas, las voy a hacer en español, en inglés. Gran parte de esto va a ser en inglés. Si quieren, los lunes o martes, no recuerdo bien, voy a hacer esta misma versión del programa, la voy a hacer en español completamente. Entonces, mm, sin más preámbulo, Jaime, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Jamie Jaime. Go to the same university as this dude. Just graduated in May. Got a degree in psychology, and just here to give a hand. See what we can spit. Just let you guys know.
Perfecto. De la misma universidad que yo, Jaime es de República Dominicana. Se graduó en mayo, you said May, right?
Yep.
En mayo de psicología, ¿sí?
Sí.
Entonces, cabe aclarar que esto no reemplaza a la terapia. This is not therapy. Si tienen problemas serios de psicológicos, por favor consulten a un médico o a su médico más cercano. If you're struggling with any mental health issues, please contact your health provider as soon as possible. We are not a specialist, we are not licensed. This is just for entertaining and educational purposes. Esto es solo para contenido, para entretenimiento y contenido educacional, ¿sí? Entonces, so the show, the program, the podcast, however you want to call it, it's basically uh, it's called Depresivos Anónimos, basically because the way I deal with depression, it was basically taking it as an addiction, right? Because I don't know. To me, sometimes when I feel depressed, uh, I think some people might feel identified with this, but usually you cover into food, drinking, smoking, or any addiction. Like when you're depressed, you hide yourself, como que uno se esconde cuando uno está deprimido en comida, en alcohol, en cigarrillos, en drogas, lo que sea. So that's why I call them depresivos anónimos. Por eso le puse así, me voy a tener eso. So, and on top of that, I read this book. Adicionalmente, me leí este libro, which is the book that they use in the AA thing, Alcohólicos Anónimos. Is it Anonymous Alcoholics?
This is the 12-step program.
Yeah, the 12-step program. The 12-step program. Para los que no saben, en la Alcohólicos Anónimos es una organización internacional sin ánimo de lucro, totalmente alejada de partidos políticos, y tienen 12 pasos para lidiar con la adicción al alcohol, ¿sí? Entonces, we're going to talk about depression and mental health issues more and more, but vamos a empezar. We're going to start with these 12 programs. So today we're going to talk about the first step. Vamos a hablar del primer paso, que básicamente es aceptar. The first step is to admit, like, that you need help.
Right.
It says something different. Let me just see if I can find it right here. Because the way they call it, well, basically, it's to accept that your life has no control and it's all based on, because it's all because of alcohol. El primer paso es aceptar que uno no tiene la posibilidad de controlar su adicción.
And why is that important?
Well, I would say it's important because if you accept you cannot control your life, you'll look for help.
Right. For sure. And I think like another thing to add to that too is, if you're in denial about having an addiction, then that sort of implies that you're in control of it. When if you're downing, a bottle of Jack Daniels every night, that doesn't sound like you're in control. So that's a big part of just overcoming denial.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. The first part is because I don't know. It's so hard. I feel like especially for men, it's super hard to accept you need help. para los hombres usualmente es mucho más difícil aceptar que necesitan ayuda. No sé, es como algo de orgullo. I think it's like a pride thing.
Yeah, it's like machismo too, right?
Exactly.
Right? Yes, I don't need help.
I don't need help.
Right.
I can deal with it by myself.
Right.
Yo puedo solo. Men don't cry. Los hombres no lloran.
Right.
You're being a pussy. Sí, es mucho machismo. I wouldn't say machismo. I think like the way the culture
But
is.
just for sure, the culture is
somehow machista. But
right.
Anyway, so what would you say is the well, if the first step is to accept it, si el primer paso es aceptarlo, what would you say are the main signals to start thinking about, like, hey, should I go look for help?
Right.
¿Cuáles son como esos señales de que debemos buscar ayuda?
Right. Well, typically, like, addictions accompany depression.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you really just need to look at, what your compulsions are.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things you're doing that, you're not even thinking about? If it's 2 a.m. and you felt sad because your boss told you off at work and you just eat 2 bowls or 2 things of ice cream, you're not thinking about it, and it's 2 a.m. Like, that's compulsion.
Uh-huh.
You're not entirely in control of what the habit has become.
Es verdad.
Right.
Dice Jaime que uno de los primeros pasos es básicamente just see something. Yeah, we're good. Es básicamente mirar las compulsiones que tenemos internamente. Si, por ejemplo, el ejemplo que ponía es si tu jefe te despidió del trabajo y a las 2 de la mañana estás pensando en eso y tu idea, tu compulsión es comerte un pote de helado o comer un arroz con algo, por ejemplo. A mí que me encanta el arroz. Eso ya es como una alarma, ¿sí? I think it's like an alarm signal.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's, when you're not thinking about doing something, that's not entirely you. It's sort of like an unconscious thing.
Mm-hmm. El inconsciente. How about insomnia? Because I would say both are related. Like depression and not sleeping are related.
Right. Because I mean, if you have a problem sleeping, you're probably just overthinking, right? And I mean, if you're depressed, some things probably might overstimulate you, which might make it harder to, get some sleep.
That's completely true.
Right. Like if you're feeling anxious, anxiety and insomnia, or like insomnia is a good indicator of anxiety or any, anxiety issues.
Mm-hmm. Bueno, ahí está, que el insomnio es también una alarma, pues, o como algo que considerar, porque usualmente el insomnio está relacionado con, how do you say overthinking? Como sobrepensar las cosas. Cuando uno agarra un tema y piensa y se va. Eso es otra señal. So we have like food control de la comida, insomnia. Algo que mencionó Jaime ahorita fue no solo con comida, cuando uno tiene excesos. I would say more like an excess of everything. Like if you smoke, you tend to smoke more. Si tú fumas, si estás estresado o ansioso, fumas más. Si estás bebiendo, bebes más. Entonces, básicamente, son esas, I would say, like, excess of everything.
What's up? What are you guys doing? Are you guys recording?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Say hi to YouTube.
Say hi to YouTube, yeah.
How many people do you have?
Like 5.
Or where?
I don't know. Okay, now with 2.
Dang, we lost your attention.
Now we're good. So you were saying?
I mean, so like Anderson mentioned the insomnia thing too, right?
Oh yeah, insomnia.
If you're an alcoholic and you have depression too, maybe the alcohol is the only solution to the insomnia, right? You gotta drink yourself to sleep pretty much, just because you're too overstimulated.
Yeah, I've heard about people, and I know some people that they will drink to sleep.
Right, because I mean, you can't get over past thoughts, and like the insomnia starts to, it's like it starts to reinforce the drinking habit. Mm-hmm. You can't get to sleep unless you drink. So that's dangerous too.
Eso es una señal de alarma, porque cuando uno, dice Jaime, se pone a tomar hasta que se duerme, pues ya es un punto en el que uno tiene que, ¿cómo decirlo? Como inspeccionarse a sí mismo. Like, go through yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
How about girls' addiction?
Girls' addiction?
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Hard to overcome, but we did it.
Okay.
Social media addiction?
I mean, I feel like everything that exists is bad. Even working out,
Right.
it's bad.
Too much water will kill you. Right?
It's true.
Yeah. If you drink too much water,
Los excesos. All right, so I was gonna ask you something about. Oh, right. So we're talking about that the first step is to admit that your life has no control.
Right.
What would you say is the next step? I mean, the next step it's they have 12 steps, right? But
Right.
we're focusing just on the first one. Estamos solamente hablando del primero que es admitir que necesitamos ayuda. We need to admit that we need help, right? So as long as you identify those, I would say, of course, talk to someone that you at least trust, or I don't know.
Right. I mean, you gotta think about like what in your environment is causing you to even want to drink. We would call that a stimulus, right?
Un estímulo.
Yeah. So like, if you're in a bar and you go out with your friends every Friday and you're trying to, break your drinking habit, then that's not gonna help being with your friends, in a bar on a Friday.
Identificar el ambiente.
So the environment is a stimulus in that case.
Okay, el ambiente es un estímulo que es verdad. Actually, I think there is something on the book that they say like if you're an alcoholic and you acknowledge that you're not alcoholic, you shouldn't be surrounded by people that drink.
Right. I mean, that's you're in a room of what's the word? Everybody's just pitching in.
Mm-hmm. All right, so first step, admit you need help. El primer paso es admitir que necesitas ayuda, ¿sí? Hablar con alguien, talk to someone that you trust, hablar con alguien, no sé. But that's the thing. Usually, we saw this on the me and Juan, we saw this on the documentary. What's the name? Stutz. Yeah,
Stutz.
Thank you. The guy says that you ask your what was the thing he said? Like you ask to your friends for advice,
right?
And the person who doesn't give you advice is your therapist,
right?
And because your friends give you unsolicited advice,
right? I mean, sometimes the advice isn't very helpful either.
Exactly. So, I think that's the. I mean, to me, therapy, because I went through psychologists, psychiatrists on drugs. I'm not drugs, like psychological drugs.
Yeah, psychotropics, stuff like that.
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like the pills they give you.
Right, antidepressants.
Yeah, like I went through all that shit. Yo he pasado por psiquiatría, psicología, medicación. But I would say that the most effective part of it, it's when you talk.
Right.
And you talk, because I feel like a good therapist is someone who will listen to you and try to lead you to your answer.
Right, and is engaged, yeah.
Yo digo que la mejor parte de la terapia es ir con alguien que, o sea, ir a un terapeuta, porque el terapeuta te va a permitir hablar y hablar y hablar. Y entre uno más habla, entre uno más se comunica.
Catarsis.
Exacto, es como una catarsis. Cuando uno saca todo eso, uno mismo se va dando cuenta de qué debo hacer. ¿Sí? So we're good. Admit it. Look for someone. Admitir que necesitas ayuda. Creo que en el libro dicen que admitir que su vida es ingobernable por culpa del alcohol. Pero digamos, admitir que uno es ingobernable por la culpa de la depresión. Buscar a alguien. Buscar a sus padres, a su mamá, a su papá, a su tío. Alguien que ustedes confíen, un mejor amigo. I wouldn't say friends that much because basically the friends, they tend to like, I don't know. Sometimes when you're talking about your problems with your friends, they come out with theirs,
right?
And it's like a competence who's worse,
right? And the way you deal with a problem might not be the same way someone else deals with a problem. Like it's still helpful that you have a group of friends to like talk to and confide in. Like that's good. A lot of people that are alcoholics and depressed don't really, they're not with friends a lot of the time. They're isolated. That's another thing about people that are depressed. They sort of isolate themselves. So
yeah, that's true.
And then he mentioned the non-gobiernos.
Ingobernable.
Yeah. So like that's sort of like saying, you're not in control of it. When a doctor hits your knee with that thing and you kick,
sí, es un reflejo.
You can't control that, right?
Sí.
That's just the instinct. And if you drink enough times, then that's eventually going to be an instinct too. And I mean, the way your brain works changes if you.
Yeah, it's pretty much like smoking, because sometimes when you smoke, and I'm talking about cigarettes, when you smoke, there comes a point when your body asks for it.
Right.
Which is like the what's the word? Compulsion, you said?
Compulsion.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're in control of it, like a lot of people will say, I can control the habit, then tell me how much you drank last night. Because if you can't give me a number, or the number is completely wrong and someone kept track, then that shows that you're not in control of it. I know how many showers I took last night. I know how much I had one bowl of cereal yesterday. But
I would say blackouts too. Blackouts are
right, like
a red flag.
that's how they beat insomnia, right? They have to black out.
Yeah, they have to black out.
Right.
Si ustedes tienen que drogarse, tomar o hacerse algo contraproducente para dormir, ya es una alarma grande.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to this part. I did these random questions on Instagram, so let's see. Let's try to answer them, and let's see what opinion we can give on them. Let me see, because okay, so here's the first question. Aquí va la primera pregunta. I'm gonna make it in both Spanish and English. So, ¿por qué me siento superior a todos los demás? Why do I feel superior to everybody else?
Why do I feel superior to everybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I think that was one who made the question.
Did you?
Definitely not.
That wasn't you.
I would have never even thought about that.
He was a camera guy.
Yeah, superiority complex. I mean, it really depends. Is there grandiosity? How do you say that? Grandiososo, or would that be the word?
Grandiosity. I don't know. That's a good question.
Right. I mean, if you feel superior to everyone else, then I'd like to see you and criticize you and see how quick you take criticism, because typically that's a sign of narcissism. Not necessarily a bad thing. Depends on the context. Sometimes you need self-esteem to function. If you're good at your job, then you're gonna do better at your job if you're good at it than saying I'm trying to be modest and saying I'm bad at it. You know what I mean? But typically that can stem from you're surrounded by a lot of people that are just being yes men to you. They're mirroring the way you want them to react. You're always trying to find self-acceptance, but in a sort of contorted way. You probably do you use social media a lot? Are you really extroverted? Are you really relying on what people say to you? Do you need people's approval? Because if you're surrounded by people that only give you approval, then those are yes men, whether they're really looking out for your best interests.
Yeah, that's actually something on you,
right?
Like if you're looking for that,
right?
Ooh.
So it's just if you think you're better, then prove your mettle. Try to find people that might make you think, I'm not as good as I think I am. Professionals,
somebody to humble you,
right? Because there's somebody out there that can.
Would you say that you should analyze how good you receive critics?
I mean, a big sign of a person with a narcissistic pathology, or pathological, would you say? Pathological, yeah. Someone with narcissistic pathology does not take criticism well.
Okay.
Right. Like they think their shit doesn't stink, pretty much, right? Like they're at the top of the world. But when someone says something different, then it really hits them. It just shows it's like a kid, you tell a kid, they've been doing something really well for a while, and Kobe dunks on them, and then they realize, no, I'm not shit. This dude is much better than me. And depending on how a person takes it, I can tell you if they have narcissism issues or not.
Okay.
So
that's a bunch of shit to translate, but
yeah.
Básicamente puede ser una señal de narcisismo y hay que mirar qué tan bien recibe uno las críticas, porque es una buena señal. Si uno recibe malas críticas y mirar cómo su alrededor, si no está rodeado por gente que constantemente le da como esa aprobación, que esa gente como lambericos que llaman. I feel like that's pretty much on women, right? They'll usually have a bunch of people or of men that they are giving them that attention.
Right. I mean, your parents too. Like you might have grown up in a really positive household, and that's a good thing. But if mom and dad think you're the divine child, pretty much, like you're the most special kid in the world, then that might be a reason why you might have a superiority complex.
Okay.
So you were parented too.
También todos los papás, de pronto los papás están diciéndole constantemente al hijo que está bien que lo apoyen y que le digan que es excelente, que es bueno, pero cuando hay mucho, right, ya es un problema. Bien, esa pregunta estuvo un poquito extraña. Let's see. Superior. No. This one. Is there such a thing as reverse psychology?
Reverse psychology? I mean, yeah. I mean, you can elicit responses from somebody depending on how you ask. Like,
because the it's not a question. It's like la psicología inversa conlleva la manipulación. Like reverse psychology leads toward manipulation.
It can. I mean, if someone abuses it, like if like the people on Wall Street are probably really good reverse psychologists. They're really good at making you think that what they're looking out for your best interests.
Yeah, and I'd say
Right.
people on conferences too.
People in conferences, right?
Yeah.
Right. Or the TED talkers.
Ajá. En resumen, sí. That was weird. This is a good one. Esa es un psicólogo es o no es consultor de amigos cercanos. Like, if you're a licensed psychologist, would it be okay to have therapy with your friends, someone you know?
To have therapy with somebody you know, or like if a therapist has a friend come in, it's probably not appropriate.
No es apropiado porque.
I mean, sometimes it's a conflict of interest, right? Like if I tell somebody something that might not make me their friend anymore, if I'm associated with them, then that affects treatment, right? So the whole purpose of treating someone as a therapist is that you have to be non-biased.
Okay.
You got to tell them, if the truth hurts, you got to tell them straight up. And like with friends, it sort of muddies the water a bit. Sort of, like I said, it's a conflict of interest a lot of the times. What do you mean by friend? Like, is it like a close friend, or is it a friend that you have sexual interest in? Stuff like that. You never know. So typically they don't like having friends, give treatment to someone they know.
En resumen, no porque hay un conflicto de intereses, porque los psicólogos se supone que deben estar, no deben tener ninguna, ¿cómo se dice bias en español?
No apoyar a ningún lado.
Sí, no deben estar de ningún lado, de ninguna historia. Ellos deben ser neutrales, esa es la palabra. Entonces, cuando uno tiene un amigo que es psicólogo, pues obviamente van a haber cosas que uno no va a tomar o que de pronto asumo yo que un psicólogo no diría algo por afectar a la persona que es su amigo. Y no sé, a veces hay intereses sexuales de amigos, entonces, básicamente no. Look at this one. ¿Por qué los hombres quieren hacer el amor todos los días y las mujeres no? Why do men want to make love every single day and women do not?
I mean, it depends. It could be a hormonal thing. There's a lot of ways to tackle that question, like testosterone, sexual interest, your cultural upbringing. I just looked at a statistic in Japan. Men in Japan have sex like once or twice a year.
A year?
Yeah, like single men that aren't in relationships, like sexual activity compared to, let's say, Japan and the United States, completely different.
Ooh.
So it really depends. So it depends on the culture, depends on how hormonal you are. For women, intimacy isn't just sex. It's not as much about that erotic part. There's the love triangle, right? There's the erotic part. There is the a lot of guys hear the word. What's that word? I want to keep things. Starts with a P. You know what I mean? Like when a girl's basically saying, she wants to be friends with you, but she's not sexually interested. Platonic. She wants to keep.
Platonic. Okay.
So
okay.
There's erotic love. There's platonic love, and then there's intimate or romantic love. It just depends. Women aren't primed the same way men are. Plus, if you think about it, I think aren't women more prone to certain sexual transmitted diseases?
I would say so.
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff about that, and then they're just harder to get in the mood, easier to break the mood. It's just
that's
different, right? Yeah.
I also wouldn't say that men always want to have sex.
Right. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
It depends.
Exactly.
Yeah, right,
Who is she with? ¿Con quién amiga, ¿con quién estás? Primero que todo.
So yeah, your libido, your sex drive are variables. Stuff like that.
Básicamente lo que dice Jaime es que hay muchas variables. Está el factor cultural, el factor de las hormonas, la testosterona. Hay muchas cosas que varían. Por ejemplo, echaba un ejemplo de que en Japón los hombres solteros tienen en promedio sexo 1 o 2 veces al año. Eso es una cosa muy diferente. Y que la intimidad no es solamente el coito. Intimacy is not only sex. Hay amor platónico, hay intimidad afectiva, intimidad de coito, varios tipos de intimidad. Entonces, si es todos los días y tú no quieres, no is no, right? Like we're clear of that part.
Right,
no is no. Maybe, I don't know. Would you say is like something? I don't want to say weird, but is it kind of something to worry about if you're leaning towards sex every single day as man?
I mean, it can become a compulsion. Like an addiction doesn't have to be a drug. I mean, sex is a drug sometimes. It depends. Like if you're doing it, like it depends. Like if you're seeing multiple partners, that's a big sign. If sex is compulsion and you're seeing multiple partners, like you're making yourself more prone to sexually transmitted diseases. You're probably gonna have issues relating to women since you're seeing so many.
That's true.
So it just depends.
Depende, puede ser una adicción. Si estoy viendo varias personas para el sexo, sí es algo como una compulsión o como una adicción.
Is it compensating for something? Like
está compensando algo,
right.
Sí, es verdad. And also, like, how would this person feel if he's deprived from sex?
If he's deprived from sex?
Yeah, because that's a way like to analyze how you feel. Because it's like the withdrawal effect when you're addicted to someone, to something, and you quit right away.
You quit cold turkey, yeah.
Cold turkey. Hay que revisar cómo se siente cuando no consigue el sexo. Vamos a ver. Esto está interesante. No, I will release this one.
That's 4, I think. This is not bad.
I don't know. This is a super general question, but it's a good topic. How to deal with anxiety? ¿Cómo manejar la ansiedad?
Anxiety issues. A lot of the times, your sense of time needs to get better. It might seem really controlling if you're like time scheduling everything, but a lot of anxiety just stems from you're not really in time, if that makes sense. You don't have a sense of urgency as much, or maybe you have too much of a sense of urgency.
Okay.
Right?
I'm gonna be translating because this is gonna be a long topic.
Right.
Puede ser por dos factores, de que uno tenga la necesidad.
Or you have too much of a sense of urgency. That's probably
el sentido de la urgencia. Cuando tienes mucho sentido de la urgencia, como que todo lo sientes que ya está aquí, que tienes que hacerlo ya. O viceversa, que no tienes el sentido de la urgencia.
Right. I mean, and if you look at like how the brain is, like when you're really anxious, you're always in like a fight or flight sort of mode.
In a way.
So fight or flight, So your brain's always seeing some stimulus is dangerous, and you're sort of really overstimulated because your brain's like, oh, we got to move left or right at any second. At the drop of a dime, we got to be able to move. So. Self-esteem issues as well. Like if you have a presentation tomorrow and so, you have all the papers done, you have all your citations, but you're going to present in front of a class of 500 people. What's the difference between presenting in front of 500 people or just presenting to the professor? It's the number of people. And the way to improve that is, relate to the people better and just have better self-esteem, know the topic in and out, and just having a sense of self.
So would you say like, work on your self-esteem first?
Work on self-esteem, yeah. Working out is a great way. People find ways to really overcome anxiety by reinforcing their self-image. So, making yourself stronger, just, improving yourself pretty much.
Okay.
Becoming more competent.
Okay. Básicamente lo que estaba diciendo Jaime es algo como, primero hay que manejar la autoestima, uno. Porque... Él pone el ejemplo, por ejemplo, cuando uno tiene un trabajo, una presentación en la universidad o en el trabajo o en donde sea, y uno tiene todo preparado, todas las citas, lo que uno va a decir, todo está preparado, pero cuando uno lo hace enfrente de un profesor o enfrente de 500 personas es muy diferente. Entonces, el self-esteem, la autoestima, hay formas de trabajarlo. Por ejemplo, hacer ejercicio. Suena repetitivo, pero hacer ejercicio... I think it's correlated, right? With self-esteem.
There's that book, How to Not Give a Fuck. What's that book? That's a good read if you have anxiety issues, especially in contexts like presenting. It's just know your self-image and.
I think I've seen the translation. Hay un libro que se llama How to Not Give a Fuck, el arte de que me importe una mierda, algo así que se llama en español, que es bueno para manejar la ansiedad. But I agree with the anxiety thing, self-esteem, and. That's the thing. Don't give a fuck about it. Básicamente me importa un culo.
You have to be impersonal about it. You gotta sort of detach yourself from it. Is sort of a way of thinking about it.
That's true.
Right.
La ansiedad. La autoestima y ¿cómo decirlo? Sí, que me importe un culo, básicamente. We did this one already. Okay, so we have this one. Okay, this one is a long one.
Okay.
¿Cómo superar a la pareja teniendo en cuenta que no está la posibilidad del contacto cero porque hay un hijo de por medio. La chica es muy buena madre, pero cero empática con su expareja. I'm a little bit lost on this one, but it says how to overcome to a to your partner, having into account that there is no contact zero possibility because there is a child in between. The girl is a good mother, but she is zero sympathetic with her ex couple. I'm lost, to be honest.
What's la pregunta?
So as far as I understand, como lo entiendo, basically this person I don't know. Basically, this person has a couple, which is a girl,
Right.
and this girl has a son.
Right.
But he says that his couple it's completely not sympathetic with her ex couple. I think that's good. I don't know.
She's not sympathetic with the ex couple?
I don't know. He says that his couple, amigo, hay que redactar bien. Basically, he's saying that his partner has a son,
right?
And of course, he has a father. She says she's a good mother, but she's not sympathetic with his ex couple. I think that he's trying to say like how could this relation be better for the kid,
right?
In terms of she dealing with her ex couple.
Oh, I see.
Taking into account that she's in a new relationship now.
Right, right.
Like this guy, I think that this guy is concerned about the child
more than he is about. But she doesn't see. Oh, I see. So he used to be with this girl?
I think that he's saying about contact zero because he has a couple. This girl has a son, and she's not sympathetic with his ex, the father of the son.
She's not
sympathetic. So basically, he wants them to be like friends, just for the child's
sake. For the sake of the kid. Okay,
exactly.
I see. But she doesn't really care.
Yeah, he says that there is no possibility of contact zero because there's a child, and she's a good mother, but she's zero sympathetic with his ex couple.
I see. So what to do? How do you navigate that?
Exactly. ¿Cómo se navega eso? ¿Qué hago? A ver, si entendimos bien, ¿qué hago si mi pareja tiene un hijo y es muy mierda con su expareja? Eso fue lo que entendimos. What would you do?
Yeah, for the sake of the kid, because he needs a father, or he or she needs a father figure, right?
He needs a father figure.
Right, and I mean, and if that's the thing, I feel bad for kids that that have a mother that, you know, I'm not saying she's promiscuous or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she's seeing multiple people,
but
it's really bad for the kid if they don't have like a stable like father image to confide in, like someone to just work with. And if there's multiple, that's really bad too.
Yeah. And how should this person approach this situation?
So yeah, that is tough. Honestly, that's.
Básicamente, sí es bueno que el hijo tenga una figura materna y paterna, pero si tiene varias, por ejemplo, que tiene padrastro y su papá, no sé qué tan, no sé la edad del niño, pero, I mean, I would say...
fighting for the kid, right?
Exacto, faltan detalles, o sea, están peleando por el niño, hay problemas con el niño, ¿qué pasa? Y hay... Yo sé que it's complicated, bro, because I had the same issue. Like my parents are separated, and I had to see like bunch of feedback. Yo digo, I mean, my personal opinion. Yo digo que si tú eres la persona que tiene esa pareja y tu pareja tienes a su ex pareja porque tienen un hijo, I'll stay as far as I can. Yo estaría tan lejos como pueda. It's their kid. Es el niño de ellos.
Yeah, it's their responsibility.
Exacto. Right. If he's in my household, si está en mi casa, I will provide like a good environment for him, but I wouldn't give my opinion on it.
Right.
Because it's not my child. It's my couple though, but it's her child. It's her responsibility. I don't know if you agree with me. Lo que dije básicamente es que si yo fuera tú, si entendimos bien, Básicamente yo me mantendría alejado de la situación por fuera, déjalos que ellos resuelvan, es su hijo, es su responsabilidad. Procura que si están viviendo en tu casa, pues tengan un ambiente sano para crecer el niño, porque pues me imagino que el interés de la pregunta es por el niño. Y just let them be, como que déjalo ser, porque ya es problema de ellos. Si son cero, si ella es mala, si ella es cero empática con la pareja, pues es problema de ella. Quién sabe por qué terminaron, entonces, I don't know. That was a good question. We're about to finish. Let's see. ¿Cómo socializar más si se es muy introvertido? ¿Cómo mejorar la autopercepción? Basically, how to socialize if you're an introvert. How to boost, how to improve the self-perception.
Right. Yeah, being introverted is tough. I'm an introvert.
Sí.
You're an introvert too, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Right. So you really want to just put yourself in places where you'll find people with common interests. If you're an introvert and you're trying to make friends in a bar, that might be a little intimidating. It's not impossible, but it might not be the best environment to try to make bonds with people.
Exacto. Esa es la clave. Buscar gente con tus mismos intereses, porque si por ejemplo vas a un bar, a una discoteca, es contraproducente porque no es tu ambiente. Por más que se lo vendan a uno como, ay, chévere y todo. Si no es tu ambiente, no es tu ambiente. O sea, you were saying?
Right. And also, this is another thing. Extroverts can be shy too. A lot of people like to confuse shyness with introversion, which typically, you're going to find if someone's shy, they're more likely to be introverted than they are extroverted. But that's not to say that shyness is exclusive to introverts. So sometimes, it might be a self-esteem thing. You might not have you might not have talked to people as much as a kid, so socializing, that level of socializing might be a bit more difficult. But if you just put yourself in an environment where you find people with similar interests, like Anderson was saying, and just know who your people are.
Exacto, sí. Está diciendo Jaime que la timidez no es sinónimo de ser introvertido, porque hay gente que es extrovertida pero también es tímida, entonces eso también depende mucho de cómo socializa uno desde pequeño. Entonces básicamente es exponerse pero responsablemente. Si uno, por ejemplo, sucede mucho, conozco ejemplos y no voy a decir nombres porque no es lo correcto. There's examples. Hay un grupo de amigos y tenemos un amigo que es súper introvertido y lo forzamos a estar en un grupo con mucha gente. We force this person to be in a group. Like, we have an introvert and we have a party and we force them to be there. Eso es lo más contraproducente que uno puede hacer. Eso es lo peor que uno puede hacer. Uno tiene que buscar, you gotta find your people. Tienes que buscar a tu gente. O sea, si te gusta leer, si te gusta el skateboarding, si te gusta el rap, si te gusta el cine, la música, lo que sea. Busca grupos que tenga gente con ese mismo interés. Ahí ya hay algo para empezar a hablar, por lo menos. You have at least something to start talking about. Talking about if you like, I don't know, music, and you find a music appreciation group.
Yeah. Just clubs help a lot too. Common interests.
Clubs. En todo lado, en Facebook, en Reddit, uno busca grupos. Por ejemplo, si te gusta el ajedrez, por ejemplo, club de ajedrez, chess club, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you just have the confidence to put your foot through the door.
Exacto.
Because if you can get to the point where you can do that,
sí.
You're fine.
O sea, es exponerse, pero exponerse con bases. O sea, no te expongas a un ambiente donde no encajas. O sea, porque es cierto, uno tiene ambientes en los que uno no encaja, ¿sí? Yo, por ejemplo, I'm about to turn 30. Yo no encajo en ciertos ambientes. I'm not going to be in some environment because I'm 30.
Right.
And that's how life is. Yo diría en self-perception.
Self-perception, yeah. That's important too.
Para la autopercepción, yo diría, trabaja en algo que te guste de ti. Uno tiene que buscar. I would say you have to look for something that you like from yourself. If you don't like anything about yourself, start working on it.
Right.
Like if you don't like because you're fat, because you're thin, because you're I don't know, your hairstyle, change it. I mean, change it, cámbialo y búscalo. Si eres gordo, si eres flaco, si eres quieres un cuerpo diferente, pues por lo menos ir al gimnasio.
Yeah.
And it's proven, right, that exercising boosts your like it lowers your depression levels in somehow.
Right. I mean, yeah, because it helps just get over that overstimulation from depression.
El ejercicio es bueno para lidiar con la depresión, con la ansiedad, pero de alguna forma te va a mejorar la autopercepción. Hey, no quiero decir que estar fit es felicidad, no, pero pues ayuda un poquito. Anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
¿Cómo detectar a un psicópata narcisista? How to detect a narcissist psychopath?
So there's a decent amount for that. So I mentioned that one thing earlier. See how they take criticism.
La primera, miren cómo toman la crítica.
Narcissists are not good at taking criticism.
A ellos no les gusta recibir críticas.
Right. See if they're always trying to surround themselves with people that are always approving them.
Miren si a esta persona le gusta estar rodeada de gente que están constantemente dándoles validación.
Right.
Validación es como alimentándoles el ego, ¿sí? Un narcisista se rodea de gente que le alimenta el ego.
Right. So I mean, a lot of celebrities are probably narcissists if you take the time to think about it.
Por ejemplo, muchas estrellas mucha gente famosa puede ser narcisista porque les gusta esa atención.
Right. Is there an obsession with their self-identity? Like, working out is good, but does it seem like they're doing it too much? Or are they working too much to try to stay ahead? Really, it's just see how they handle their self-image.
Cómo manejan su imagen, cómo se proyectan, si es una obsesión, por ejemplo, hacer ejercicio o si trabajar es una obsesión para sobresalir sobre la gente, es una señal.
Right. I'd say the main thing is the criticism thing, because behind every narcissistic personality, there's an inferiority complex in them.
Esa frase me gusta. Lo principal es mirar cómo llevan la crítica, porque usualmente un narcisista es alguien que tiene un complejo de inferioridad.
Yeah.
Would you say like they are trying to
They're trying to compensate for the inferiority complex.
Están tratando de compensar ese complejo de inferioridad con atención. Ojo con eso. Especially couples. Usually in couples, when you're dating someone who's a narcissist, there's people that are always trying to get your attention.
Right. So if you're a really dependent person, like the big word right now is codependency.
Codependencia, ojo, en las parejas.
Narcissists love dependent people because they want them to think, they're the entire world. You can't do anything without me.
Los narcisistas les encanta tener a gente que si piense que no pueden vivir sin ellos.
Right.
That's when you have toxic relationships, right?
Right, exactly.
Ahí están las toxicidades en la relación. Por ejemplo, esa gente que terminan y que no toleran que terminaron y están ahí encima.
Right. Another big thing is they're typically masochists. They like to inflict pain.
Son masoquistas. Inflict or receive?
Inflict pain.
Oh.
They like to, like Grey's Anatomy, so 50 Shades of Grey. What does he do? What's his fetish?
Pegar.
Right.
Usualmente les gusta atacar a la gente.
They like to inflict pain. Right.
Pero no, atacar no, producir dolor de alguna forma. Look at this one. ¿Por qué en ocasiones me da bajones de tristeza sin razón? Why sometimes I get like out of nowhere sad attacks. Like I feel sad out of nowhere.
Mm.
Like my level of happiness is here and out of a sudden it goes here.
Oh, I see. Typically that's a sign of like bipolar personality disorders. Typically, really what I think it comes down to is what we would say from a psychoanalytic perspective is that you don't have a strong ego. And because since you don't have a strong of an ego, there might be things that get to you unconsciously without even your awareness of them that might bring you down, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right. So if let's say you are prone to like roller coaster emotions.
Okay. But there's something that triggers you.
There's something there's triggers. There's always a trigger. It could be something in the environment, something that you didn't like, a color you don't like, or maybe something reminded you of a memory you had that made you sad. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the background that might trigger you, and you have to be aware of what in your environment might cause you to have such a slippery spectrum of like high to low.
Básicamente lo que dijo Jaime resumiendo es que por una parte puede ser una señal de bipolaridad, pero es una señal solamente, no es que seas bipolar. Pero las emociones, la definition, usualmente somos una montaña rusa de emociones porque estamos aquí así y así, y siempre hay triggers, hay detonantes que hacen que uno que en el ego, eso ya es parte del psicoanálisis. Was Freud, right? Who said that?
Or Freud or Jung too, but think of it like this: like if your ego is like a dam, right? You're trying to keep water away, and the water could be different things in your environment. If you have like a bipolar personality disorder, or you're really prone to like jumping in between, it means there's water getting through that dam, and you have to figure out why it's getting through. So there's like parts of your ego you have to patch up that you have to like reinforce. And
Me gusta. Tu cabeza es como una presa y a veces esa presa tiene como, how do you say leaks? Como goteras que se le escapan de pensamiento, entonces hay que mirar qué es lo que produce esos detonantes o lo que está haciendo que salga el agua de pensamientos, que básicamente, como decía Jaime, todos tenemos algo acá que está totalmente dando vueltas, pero hay algo en el ambiente que lo dispara. Entonces hay que analizar qué es lo que está disparando.
And think about what's making you sad. Like, is it specific things? Like, is it always sort of similar things? If you really just take the time to say, why am I sad? Instead of just thinking about the fact that you're sad, ask yourself why you're sad.
Buena pregunta. Empezar a preguntarse, no fijarse en que estoy triste, sino por qué estoy triste. O sea, cuáles son los pensamientos que se repiten cada que estoy triste para identificarlos. Que es a good step to identify them.
And if you know the why, then you know where the pipes are leaking.
Exacto. Si sabes cuál es el por qué, pues, sabes cómo resolverlos. Anxiety again. ¿Cómo manejar la ansiedad por comer? How to deal with anxiety for eating?
Eating anxiety?
Eating anxiety.
Like just eating in general? Is it like what's it? Not dyslexia. The one where like body dysmorphia?
I think it's pretty much like some people, and I include myself, some people when you are anxious and when you are like depressed, you tend to feel rewarded when you're eating.
Right.
Like it calms you down.
Right.
So like basically when you're anxious, when you're nervous, you start eating.
Right.
When you're about to feel depressed, you start eating.
When you're about okay, so how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so for one, think about what the triggers are. What's triggering the compulsion to eat.
¿Qué te está obligando a comer? ¿Qué te está diciendo que comas? ¿Qué es lo que hay que considerar?
Because the thing is, if a compulsion is doing anything, right? So you can switch to eating with cigarettes, alcohol.
Sí, porque la compulsión puede ser cualquier cosa, cigarrillos, sexo, alcohol.
So yeah, figure out what's causing it, and if you're trying to manage like an anxious eater, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Probably schedule times in a day to consistently eat. That would probably help. Get like a routine going, just so you know, I only eat during these times of the day, and having that schedule helps reinforce the habit.
Manejar como un horario para dónde comer, para que forzarse solamente a comer en ese horario. And also, I would say, do you know the banana trick? Like,
banana trick? No?
Yeah. Hay un truco que es para saber si tienes hambre. So there is this trick if you want to know if you're really hungry or you're just craving for something. I don't know.
Right.
So if you say, okay, I'm hungry, think about a banana right away.
Mm.
If a banana sounds delicious to you that moment, you're hungry.
Right.
If it doesn't, it's because you're craving something else and it's just being anxious.
I see. And then banana is that's like the pure neutral fruit.
Exacto.
Right.
El truco de la banana es el truco de la banana. Si tienes ansiedad por comer, haz el truco de la banana. ¿Cómo funciona? Tú dices, tengo hambre. Ok, piensa de una en un banano. Una banana, no sé cómo digan ustedes. Si la banana suena rico en ese momento, sí es hambre. Si no suena rico una banana en ese momento, es ansiedad o es solamente un antojo pendejo. Let's see the last. Where is it? I missed the. Oh shit. There you go. Oh shit, this is a hard one. Un trauma por. I'm not gonna say this because it's gonna be bad on YouTube. Léanme los labios. Un trauma por. Tiene repercusiones en la vida sexual de la víctima. ¿Qué le recomendaría a una víctima de abuso sexual? Okay. That's a. Oh shit. I'm going to mute myself. Voy a preguntarle, pero me voy a mutear para que YouTube no me censure.
Right.
Acabo de preguntar la misma pregunta, solo que me muteé para que YouTube no me censure.
Okay. Estamos
hablando básicamente de algo que le pasó a alguien. Básicamente, utilizó su cuerpo sin su consentimiento, es lo que quiero decir. ¿Y qué le recomendaría a esa persona?
Right. For stuff like that, you really have to have a good sense of trust in the person you're with,
Ujú,
and that takes a lot of work.
ujú.
So one night flings probably aren't really your cup of tea if you've been through trauma like that.
Yeah.
So for one, you have to establish trust with the person. You have to establish boundaries too. That's probably the other bigger one. The boundaries are probably the most important.
Ok, primero que nada, hay que evadir las relaciones de una noche, o sea, los one night stands, you mean, that's not a good idea.
That's not something.
No es bueno que estés con alguien. And I would say that's not something that this person will feel like doing.
Right.
Primero que nada, evitar las relaciones de una sola vez y con tu pareja, con tu potencial pareja sexual, establecer confianza. Tienes que tener mucha confianza en la persona y establecer límites, boundaries.
Sí.
Límites.
Right. And if you're with someone that, maybe you don't want to tell them because you're still getting to know them, it's still a boundary either way. They don't need to know why it is. It's, that's self-respect. There's a line, and if a person loves you, they won't cross it.
Ok, que una barrera o un límite puede ser que no tienes que contarle a esa persona, a tu pareja sexual, inmediatamente que fuiste víctima de esta situación. Y eso es que no tiene por qué saberlo de una. O sea, eso es una cosa que tiene que respetar, que él se va a dar cuenta después, él o ella, no sé. Se va a dar cuenta después. Entonces, es más una cuestión de confianza y mantener los límites hasta donde tú lo permitas. Porque recuerda que desde que sea consensuado, todo es válido. Y si tú sientes que algo no está bien, pues pon un límite y ya.
And working out would probably help too. Ways to reinforce your self-image would help as well.
Ok, y formas de reafirmar tu imagen es, like, working out.
Yeah, or anything that helps you feel more confident about your control of your body.
Ok, algo que te haga sentir bien con el control de tu cuerpo, eso te va a ayudar con tu autopercepción y también te ayuda con el cuento. Sí, claro, porque es darle tu cuerpo a alguien más y si tú estás bien con tu cuerpo, no tienes tanto problema con entregarle ese cuerpo a alguien más. That was a hard one. Look at this one. ¿Por qué siempre vuelvo a quien me hace daño? Why do I always come back to those who hurt me?
Yeah, that could be. We would say that's like a dependency artifact.
Ok, dependencia.
Dependencia. There's definitely some dependence there, and it could even be because you're giving them too much control over your perception of yourself.
Puede ser porque le estás dando mucho control sobre la percepción de ti misma, de ti mismo.
And with issues like this, there's also an unconscious desire to want them to affirm you, to sort of take you back in and say, I was wrong, or, I didn't, I messed up, stuff like that.
Ok, y también hay como una idea interna de querer de que esta persona diga, ok, está equivocado, la cagué.
Right. And
tienes como esa necesidad de que ellos lo admiten.
Right, and it's it might be more complicated than that. It might be someone that you've known for a long time, that you were good friends with. Maybe you had a romantic interest, but you also have to know, again, boundaries are important here too, and don't give anybody your self-image. That's in your hands, pretty much.
Okay, no le des mucha información a esa gente. Ahí está, porque no sabes qué van a hacer con ella. Después de ir mucho a varios psicólogos, cuando ya se sabe lo que van a decir, ¿es bueno dejar de asistir o intentar asistir? After going a lot of psychologists, when you know what they're going to say, is it good to stop going or just keep trying to go?
I mean, it depends. You really, if that's a good question, because that means you should probably start educating yourself about different psychological approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Some might be more effective to deal with the issues you have.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find you keep hearing the same generic response, you're probably going to therapists that are all trained in the same field.
Okay.
So you should start researching different fields of psychology, especially ones that are attuned to fixing your issues, or helping, not fix, but helping you deal with your issues.
Okay, básicamente es una buena forma es un buen momento para empezar a que investigues tú mismo por estilos de psicología o conocimientos sobre psicología, o sea, empezar a investigar, porque puede ser que si uno está recibiendo esas, si lo que escuchas en terapia es genérico, lo que siempre escuchas es porque tal vez estos psicólogos tienen la misma rama de estudio psicológico. Entonces hay varias formas, hay varios approaches, hay varias formas de tratar a un paciente. Entonces tienes que ir buscando también aparte.
Right, and then to add on to that too, ask your therapist what they studied
Pregúntale a tu terapeuta qué estudió.
See what they know. And if you find that they all have the same, this is a common denominator, they all have the same sort of practice and approach, then you probably need to see if you can find another resource.
Ok. He dejado de buscar ayuda. Siento que me he dado por vencido en silencio. I stopped looking for help. I feel like I gave up in silence.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we would say that's the detachment or like solitude issues there. So right now, I like to think of detachment and solitude or giving up like that as going through a desert. You like to feel like you're all alone, and in a way that's also sort of inflated if you think about it. If you remove yourself from the hands of people that will help you out of your own sense of no one understands me, then you should think about whether that's sort of if that's an arrogant thought if you think nobody can help you. Because a lot of the times that's what that issue is stemming from. If you think you're in solitude, no one can understand. We would call that ego inflation.
Ego inflation?
Right. Just because no one has the solutions to my problem. That's sort of a pretty bold claim. But it's understandable, right? Because it could be an issue of maybe you're afraid of being vulnerable to, give people the resources to help you. They might hurt you more. I would say that's sort of what I would say to that.
Ok. Uy, está heavy porque es tener el ego muy inflado, básicamente, porque es decir que nadie me entiende y nadie me...
You're not alone.
Exacto, no estás solo o sola. Es un problema. I feel like I saw this on the Stubbs documentary, like feeling in a loophole.
Right.
Like, es estar como en un círculo vicioso de que nadie me entiende, entonces no hablo porque nadie me entiende, entonces no hablo porque nadie me entiende y no se queda y se queda y se queda, y se queda cuando no. O sea, es un poco arrogante, fue la palabra que utilizó Jaime, para decir, si nadie te entiende, estás en un punto en el que eres inalcanzable y eso es un poquito arrogante. Entonces, sí puedes recibir ayuda, sí hay gente que te puede ayudar. I would say it's more of a trust thing, who to talk to.
Right. You should, if you can find a good movie that has someone going through a desert and like figuring it out, that will help you get to like the more emotional, like unconscious part of why you feel that
way. Sí, puedes ver una película en la que alguien está en un desierto, es bueno porque es una metáfora que lo utiliza ahorita para lo de la soledad, de que está en un desierto y que tengo que figure out, tengo que darme cuenta cómo lo soluciono. Sí. Sería bueno. Y yo estaba diciendo algo con lo que tú dijiste de que eso es arrogante y vuelve y juega lo que dijimos al principio, o sea, es aceptar de que it goes to the first step we were talking about, like to accept, to admit that you need help.
Right.
If you're thinking on giving up, estás pensando en rendirte, ya identificaste que si tienes un problema y el primer paso es aceptarlo, el segundo es buscar ayuda. Busca a alguien en el que confíes, contarle el problema, a un terapeuta y, como te digo, hay que investigar. Pero I'll say they're in the right path, like at least admit that they're thinking on giving up.
Right.
O sea, si estás pensando en rendirte es porque al menos ya identificaste que sí hay un problema y el primer paso, como dijimos al principio de la transmisión, es identificarlo. Okay, this is the last three.
Yes, solitude is the first step of the journey.
Exacto, la solitud, la soledad es el primer paso del viaje, o sea, es darse cuenta de que, ok, tengo problemas, hay que buscar ayuda. ¿Qué ejercicios o estrategias recomiendan para evitar el autosabotaje? What exercise or strategies would you recommend to avoid how do you say that? Like when you autosabotaje. It's basically when you fail because you did something on purpose to mess it up with yourself.
Like self-criticism?
No, it's not. It's going beyond that. Like there's this kind of relationship like when someone mess it up because it's a person that tends to mess it up all their things. Let me just look for the word.
Right.
While you think on it. Lo siento, gente, no soy completamente bilingüe. Autosabotaje. Let me see. No.
What was the word?
The word is self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage.
The question is, ¿qué ejercicios o estrategias recomiendan para evitar el autosabotaje? What exercise or strategy would you recommend to avoid self-sabotage?
Self-sabotage, okay. So, I mean, it depends on the context, too. So people that might be going into new relationships might self-sabotage because it gives them a better sense of control.
Okay.
So, right. So for one thing, so like you got to have a good sense of what your limits are. That's a good one.
Tener un buen sentido de dónde están tus límites. Why?
It's important to know your limits because if you can work with a baseline, if you can always, how would you say baseline in Spanish?
Como un punto de partida.
Right. Or if you can, find the things you can do consistently and see if you can like maintain that consistency going forward. But self-sabotage, the issue with self-sabotage is a lot of the time is not necessarily you. It's something like unconsciously in you that's sort of doing it. Something that's sort of it might be trying to humble you. It might be trying to stop any, methods of progress or any steps forward. Okay. Self-sabotage is an interesting one because you should start thinking about it not so much as I'm self-sabotaging. It's something in my unconscious is self-sabotaging.
El problema es que a veces el autosabotaje es una cosa del inconsciente, entonces no es una cosa de que tú digas, lo estoy haciendo a propósito para joderme la vida a mí. O sea, hay que ir más a fondo y analizar qué es lo que hay adentro que te está produciendo ese autosabotaje. Ahorita hablamos de un baseline. Tener una serie de límites y saber tener una lista de actividades que tú puedas hacer constantemente para progresar contigo mismo en tus acciones, ¿cierto? Pero entonces, ejercicios, like, what strategies would you say are good to avoid that?
To overcoming self-sabotage? Mm-hmm. I would say try to find the most recent time you self-sabotage something.
Trata de encontrar la vez más reciente en la que te autosaboteaste.
Right, and then write down what you would have done if you had the chance to fix it and go back.
Y escribe qué hubieras hecho si tuvieras el chance, si tuvieras la posibilidad de mejorarlo. ¿Qué harías en esa situación que ya pasó? ¿Cómo lo hubieras hecho mejor?
Right, and think about if the outcome was better than
the actual result.
Than the actual result, then try your best to implement the outcome you desire.
Entonces, compara si lo que escribiste sería mejor de lo que en realidad pasó. Eso sería como una estrategia.
Right, and if you self-sabotage a lot, I imagine you have a bad self-criticism problem, which might also mean you're probably a little bit of a perfectionist. So you should really think about your limits. Think about what you can and can't do.
Piensa en tus límites, piensa en lo que puedes y no puedes hacer, porque esa idea de la perfección es la que nos jode. O sea, hay que tener límites. I would say have like realistic goals.
Have realistic goals,
como,
right.
Ponte metas realistas de lo que quieres hacer con tu vida, tu relación. O sea, como que no, para que no te vayas hasta un extremo, ponte metas realistas, ¿sí? Right. Por ejemplo, no decir voy a durar para siempre con mi pareja. No, o sea, voy a hacer que por lo menos esta semana se sienta bien, es mi pareja.
Right.
¿Sí? O voy a perder 40 kilos, voy a bajar de peso. No, ponte una meta de voy a ir esta semana, voy a ir al gimnasio constantemente. All right, let's go with the last two.
Let's do.
Oh, actually, the last one. Oh, shit,
Is it long?
Dice, llevo varios años con mi pareja, lo cual la cual todavía amo y según lo que me da a entender el sentimiento recíproco. Sin embargo, hace un tiempo para acá peleamos todos los días y la relación se volvió completamente monótona y ambos admitimos estar cansados y aburridos en la relación. Okay. I have a couple from a couple of years. I still love them. Let's say it's a them, him or her. And according to what he or she tells me, it's a reciprocal. How is that? Reciprocal thing.
Right.
They both love each other,
right.
According to what he or she perceives. Nonetheless, they fight every single day. The relationship is a little bit monotonous, and they both admit to be tired and bored with the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best thing to do in this situation?
So they both admit to being tired and bored in the relationship, but they really love each other?
This person is saying, I love my couple and
or my spouse.
And my spouse and they tell me that they love me too, but we've been constantly fighting and we both admit to be tired and bored in the situation, in the relationship, because it's kind of monotonous.
Right. I mean, if you're still together and you still think it's still worth staying together, and probably, I mean, for one, a couples therapist would be good if you have access to it.
Si aún están juntos y piensas que tiene solución, pues podría ir a un terapeuta de parejas.
But if you do go for a couples therapist, you have to be mindful to make sure that the person you pick is not biased. Because a lot of the times, a lot of couples therapists will kind of lean towards the woman. So it's hard to find couples therapists that aren't biased.
Y hay que escoger bien el terapeuta porque puede ser una persona que esté sesgada, that's the word, sesgada. Porque a veces, usualmente se tiran más para el lado de la mujer, entonces hay que buscar a alguien que sea completamente neutro, un terapeuta neutro.
And if you guys are fighting a lot, sometimes it's best to like step back from it and see if, you know, were you really there when you were arguing, or was that something else? Did something else sort of take over what you were talking about? You know what I mean?
¿De qué están hablando cuando empezaron a pelear? O sea, ¿es algo del pasado o es algo que del momento?
That's right. When you finish an argument and you say, I wish I didn't say that. Why did I say that? You should start thinking about it. It's not necessarily you that said that. It's
the unconscious.
It could be an unconscious, right? It could be a complex in your unconscious, you know?
Hay que analizar si cuando discuten te pasa lo de, puta, ¿por qué dije eso? No debería haber dicho eso. Porque puede ser algo del inconsciente que estés manifestando.
Right, and if you find that it's a common theme that you keep arguing about the same things, then that'll help you sort of pinpoint what unconscious thing it is.
Okay, y si están siempre discutiendo sobre lo mismo, es una buena forma de darse cuenta qué es lo que pasa en el inconsciente. Porque si es de lo mismo, algo está pasando en el inconsciente.
Right, because then it's a pattern, right?
Porque ya sería un patrón exactamente.
Right.
All right, that was a bunch of questions.
Yeah,
fueron demasiadas preguntas, gracias a los que participaron. How would you conclude? Let's conclude this with a recommendation. Any recommendation? I have 2 recommendations. First thing was to admit that we need help, right?
Right.
And I mean, the first step, according to what the research we did and the book we were talking about at the beginning, is to admit you need help, right? If you need help, again, contact your health provider if you think you're dealing with mental issues. If you don't think you need mental health, I mean, at least talk about it with someone you trust.
Right.
Your family, your friends, something you trust, and try to come up with solutions. And maybe you realize that you do need to look for an specialist, someone that is licensed. Gente, primero que nada, hay que admitir, primer paso. Si de pronto lo dudas, habla con alguien que tú confíes, tu familia, tus amigos, alguien que tu pareja, el que confíes para decidir si tienes que ir a terapia o no. And recommendations. I would recommend first of the book, the Alcohólicos Anónimos, the Anonymous Alcoholics, the 12 Steps. That's a good book. And also, I have 2 recommendations. Stutz is a documentary about these psychologists, and what's the name of the actor?
Jonah Hill?
Jonah Hill, yeah.
That one?
Yeah, it's a really, really good documentary. El documental de Stutz está en Netflix. Y The Whale. I'm obsessed with that movie.
The Whale?
The Whale. It's a good movie about depression. It's really, really good. Se llama La Ballena. La última de Brendan Fraser. Any recommendation, tips of advice, anything you would like to say?
The movies are pretty solid. Definitely recommend those. And if you are interested in understanding yourself better, start a dream journal.
Bueno, las películas dice que están buenas también para recomendación. Y también empezar un diario de sueños. Empezar a escribir qué está pasando, qué pasa en tu cabeza.
Right.
Y eso te ayuda también a hacer es como un diálogo, like a dialogue with yourself. Es como un diálogo interno.
And if you do it long enough, you'll start seeing things that stick out. And if they are issues, it might be your unconscious trying to tell you.
Si lo haces constantemente, te vas a dar cuenta que van a haber cosas que sobresalen y no se da cuenta qué es lo que está pasando en el inconsciente.
Yeah.
En fin, thank you very much, Amy, for being here. Gracias a todos, chicos. Los veo próximamente. Bye.
Ciao.